This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. And here we are. We've come to the end of another year. One for many of us that has been the most successful one we've witnessed. Although on the other hand, maybe one of the most disappointing, being so close but missing out on spot kicks. I'm sure we'll cover that, in due course. But from a podcast perspective, over the year, this is the 54th episode, which surprised me. Obviously helped by the glut during the summer, but I have been lucky enough to speak with many people about their enjoyment of following England. I started the series looking at former England managers. We had Walter Winterbottom, Alf Ramsey and Don Revie. I'm pleased to say that series will continue into 2022. I spoke with former England physio, Aidan Smith. There were loads of England fans. We also spoke with John Hemmingham from the England band. There was Tango, there was Bisto. There was that two-parter with Brian Wright. And we also spoke Wembley with Kevin Masters from Block 109. And all those episodes and all the others can be found at threelionspodcast.com or your usual podcast provider. But seeing as you're listening to this, you already know that. Now, it's been a year where I've been regularly joined by England bloggers, England writers, if you will. We've had Dom Smith from englandfootball.org, Matt Astbury, who writes at mattasburysport.wordpress.com, and Aidan Smith from threelions.net. And I am super pleased to say that they are all back to have a look over the year with me. Welcome along, Dom. Welcome along, Aidan. Welcome along, Matt. We're well?
Yeah, all
doing all right. Cool.
Very good, thank you.
Now, a year 2021, it was a year that started off behind closed doors. It was a year that was bookended by San Marino. 19 games throughout 2021, 2 friendlies, 7 Euro 2020 matches, 10 World Cup qualifiers. There's loads of stats that we can kind of throw in throughout this chat. Yeah, let's highlight of the year. Let's go with that to start with. Let's go, Dom. Let's go on. Give us your highlight of the year.
I think it would be questionable of me if I didn't choose the Luke Shaw goal in the first 2 minutes of the final. It's such a momentous day leading up to that. It was a momentous sort of 4 or 5 days leading up to that, knowing that we'd kind of scraped past Denmark, who aren't a significant force historically in football, but at the moment they're very, very good. Kasper Hjulmand's done a great job with them. And so to beat them and make the final, I think a lot of us felt we were dreaming. You know, it's the kind of thing that you kind of plot out your life in England failings, and you never really expect that you're going to be able to see England in a final, and we knew we were about to. So incredibly exciting, looking forward to that. You then get settled, and before you've taken your seat, you go 1-0 up. It was so exciting. You felt like you were dreaming, and because of how early in the game it was, you know, teams just don't score that early into big games. It just doesn't happen. No one does that, let alone England, after all the times they've kind of pulled on your heartstrings and disappointed you and let you down, like an unfaithful partner almost. So the idea that they would score 2 minutes into the game, I think it let a lot of people feel that they were dreaming, and that actually there was some kind of divine script that was about to bring home the European Championships for England. Alas, it wasn't true that there was a divine script, and it wasn't true that England were about to win the Euros. But for a good long while in that final, there was the hope and perhaps the expectation that actually that goal was going to be enough. And what a goal it was as well! Oh. Incredible counter-attacking goal. And Harry Kane has been just to unpick the goal a little bit. Harry Kane, of course, gets kind of questioned in terms of him dropping deep for England and for Tottenham, and I think that's fair. He is a striker. He's a focal point number 9, a true striker, and sometimes he isn't in the box when he needs to be. But anyone who wonders why he drops deep, only needs to look at that goal. Luke Shaw picked it up in the left back spot, played it to him, and if it wasn't for his forward thinking and ability to pick out Trippier, who was the man over on the right, England wouldn't have scored that goal, and the final may have gone even worse for them. So that's the highlight of the year, because for a few moments at least, well, more than a few moments, for a number of minutes, it felt like it was going to be the most influential goal you've ever seen in your life, and perhaps the most influential you ever do see.
No, it's an amazing moment. I'll talk about that as this episode goes on. But the one thing that I remember thinking shortly after that had gone in, and probably like a few minutes, once everyone had settled down a bit, I kind of thought back to when I used to watch cup finals with my granddad, and we'd watch them at home, and it was like a tradition we always used to do. And he always used to say to me, whoever scores in a cup final first never wins the final. And sort of 5 minutes after that goal, that thought just sort of dropped into my mind, and I was like, oh no. Yeah, no, good one to start us off with. Aidan.
Yeah, I was going to try and think of something really clever to say here, but to be quite honest, I don't think anyone's going to argue if I say the final. Just even just getting to the final. Yeah. After everything that this country's been through in terms of footballing success or lack of footballing success over the years, it just felt like we couldn't not do it in the end. We had to, having gone so far, having done so well in Russia as well, and the fashion in which we did it as well. I also often watch England at tournaments, and you get to, if we even get out of the group, obviously we can't take that as a given these days, but if we get out of the group, we often look like a spent force by the knockout stages. We didn't have the group stage that anyone really wanted, but we got through it unscathed. We hadn't conceded a goal. We went on to not concede a goal in the next 2 knockout games as well, and we scored 6. Got past Germany as well, which finally beating a major nation in a tournament for the first time since 2000 and Argentina, I think it was in 2000, or one of the tournaments around there, 98 or
2002, wasn't it? Yeah,
2002. That was it. Yeah, with Beckham's penalty. Yeah, so the fact that we were able to get over that, those final few hurdles, which we previously haven't. I always get so frustrated when I watch England, and I look at, okay, we were the better team for this period of the game, and why couldn't we capitalise or anything like that? And we always look at that when we go out, and I'm sure other teams do, but it's always felt as it never falls England's way, and it did, and it just felt like Dom said, like we were dreaming for a while, because it just didn't feel like we'd really experienced that much of a challenge as much as you expect to in a major tournament. So yeah, that would certainly be my highlight.
Yeah, and certainly being on home soil as well gave us that sort of opportunity to feel what it's like for a home nation to have it on your front doorstep, I think, as well. Matt, go on in. What's your highlight of the year?
Well, it'll be no surprise. Mine is Euros related again, but it's going to be going straight back to the start of the campaign, actually, that game against Croatia, because we'd all been starved of going to watch a live England game, which I'm watching them for most of the first half of this year. But then that game against Croatia, I don't remember the game that much. I remember the goal. It wasn't a standout performance, but I just remember the weather. It was beaming hot sun, and 2:00 kickoff on a Sunday. It felt like proper old school, and I was seeing people that I've been travelling with and hadn't seen for nearly a year, and it was just all the occasion of it, really. Obviously, getting to the final, and that was great. But whenever I look back on the Euros campaign now, I do always think about that red hot June Sunday afternoon where it was quite uncomfortable actually to be in the crowd that day, but we kicked off the campaign with a bang. There was a real buzz in the air, and that was my heart, just going to a game again, but for a tournament as well. So yeah, it's that Croatia game in the sun. Raheem still opened the scoring, and then that kicked off what I've said to many people now has been one of the best summers of my life.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That sort of anticipation of the tournament coming round. That Croatia game, the first one, we'd had a couple of friendlies before that, hadn't we? We had Austria and Romania up at Middlesbrough to sort of whet our appetites a bit. But yeah, I remember that sun was blistering that day for Croatia. I know what you mean. And the amount of people I saw come away with sunburn after being on the lower tier that day, like massive red foreheads. But yeah, I think my highlight of the year, I mean, they're all sort of Euros related as they will be. But with the whole tournament being delayed by a year, it was like we were all champing at the bit for it to finally come round. And when it did, we're all really excited for it. But I think one of the, in a strange way, a highlight for me was coming away from Wembley after the Denmark game, because it was like, actually, we've done it. I've finally seen us win a semi-final, and I now know the feeling of us being in a final. Obviously, it wouldn't go away, as we all well know. And it was like I wasn't the only one feeling that for the first time. There were people at home watching it on the telly. There were people abroad supporting England watching it on the telly. There were people walking aside me going down Wembley Way, going back to the train station, all sort of feeling that same sort of, wow, we've done it. We've finally made it to a final. I remember coming out, walking with a couple of friends back to the station, and it was almost like we had everything to say to each other, but we didn't know how to sort of say it other than, wow, we're in a final. So yeah, kind of that wait and anticipation was over. A bit of disbelief as well. Yeah, it was, I think that might be, in a strange way, one of my sort of highlights of the year. Just sort of that feeling, which was a good feeling to obviously have. It was a year, obviously, that saw us get to the finals. A year where we played 19, won 15, drew 4, lost none, technically. We didn't lose a game all year. Okay, we lost a penalty shootout. A year where we scored 52 goals and only conceded 5. Plenty of goal scorers throughout the year and plenty of great players. Which moves us on to your England Player of the Year, which is, I don't know if anyone has come up with this. I don't even know how many players we used this year. But Matt, go on. Do you want us to start off? Who was your Player of the Year?
I'm going to go for Calvin Phillips in midfield, because when he came into the team at first, I don't know what I was expecting. Obviously, quite often England's midfield was getting criticised for being too, defensive, or, they're not very a team they're not a partnership which will push forward. But then when Calvin Phillips came in that Croatia game, I'm going to hark back to that game again. I was with a few Leeds fans who follow Leeds all over the place, and they were really buzzing. I was like, yeah, I'm excited too, but I don't get why you guys are, getting really excited over it. And then it clicks then in that game. I mean, his range of passing is just unbelievable. It's something that I think is a lot of people sometimes forget about if they don't watch England or Leeds regularly or watch Calvin Phillips play regularly. And he just became a mainstay in that midfield. And it's got to the stage for now where he's so crucial in this England team, is that when he's not in it, because I feel like now the midfield can get a bit congested. Nothing's really going on. The ball's not being moved forward. So yeah, it's Calvin Phillips. And obviously, he got the award as well, the official England Player of the Year awards, and it was thoroughly deserved. I mean, you saw the look on his face when Declan Rice gave it him, who was his partner in crime in midfield, and Calvin Phillips couldn't believe it, but he fully deserves that award. And I think this Euros and everything around it, he really cemented his place in the team, and hopefully he could be a major part in Qatar and hopefully a few more tournaments to come.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in there as well, because I'd gone for Calvin Phillips as well, and everything you said there was sort of like exactly what I was thinking. Although I must admit, for me it was, I looked at Calvin Phillips and I thought the way that he sort of combined with Declan Rice, and I then thought, actually, do I think Declan Rice is a contender? Surely a contender. But I think for me that what you said there, Calvin Phillips, when he came into it, and everyone was thinking, really, is he England standard? And came in and just pulled all the strings in that Croatia game. But him and Declan Rice just worked so well together in tandem. And I think with Calvin Phillips as well, I can't remember what games it was towards the end of the World Cup qualifying campaign that he was injured for, he was injured, I think, rather than suspended. I think it was such a noticeable thing that he wasn't in the team. So yeah, I'm going to go with you there and go with Calvin Phillips and probably obviously, as you say, as he won the England Player of the Year, along with a lot of other people who think the same thing. Yeah, Aidan, go on, throw us your player into the mix.
Oh, this is tricky. There's just so many, aren't there? I think there's, obviously the obvious choices, Raheem Sterling or Jordan Pickford, but I'm going to go for someone who might, I don't know, you probably won't expect, but I'm going to go for John Stones, not because I think he's been England's best player of the year, but because I think the year that he's had and the fact that he's been able to get himself to where he is and where he has been all year is probably a bigger factor to England doing so well this year than people might appreciate. I think back to when we all remember his calamity against Holland in the Nations League semi-final, and then he didn't play for the rest of the calendar year in 2019. And Gareth Southgate was saying, John Stones has got to play to the standard of the rest of my defenders before I call him up again. And even in, so for the rest of that qualifying campaign, we were thinking, oh, goodness me, because at that time we thought, the Euros were still going to be in 2020. Are we going to have to play Mings, Maguire and Fikayo Tomori, who's got, 7 minutes of England game time? And we're going to have to play him in 6 months' time? Are we going to have to go to a back three? Well, we did try that after COVID in autumn last year. We tried a back three. And the reason being, one of the main reasons is because John Stones was not at the standard. And really, we had one centre-back a world-beating centre-back, a titan at the back, and that was Harry Maguire. So we tried to kind of work around that, and we went to a back three. We had Connor Cody come in. We had Eric Dyer for a little bit. But I think the fact that John Stones was able to come into form at a similar sort of time to when Luke Shaw was able to really start playing for Manchester United. Luke Shaw got into the City side, and it was at the beginning of this calendar year. And I think when you look at the year, I really seriously don't think we would have got to the final of Euro 2020 had John Stones not been where he was. Again, I'm not saying he's the best player, but the fact that we were able to go into that tournament with two centre-backs on the top of their game, and Mings had to play, the first two games, and he was absolutely fantastic. And then Maguire came back in and he got man of the match. But John Stones, throughout that whole thing, I think he was almost an unsung hero for the tournament. And so I'm going to go for John. And, he's kept it after the tournament as well. And Southgate's now using him in some of these easier games alongside new centre-backs who are coming up. So Tomori's getting game time against Andorra. We'll put him alongside John Stones then. And it's just great to see John Stones flourishing now and taking a bit of responsibility and growing into a bit more of a leader at the back. That's really good.
Wasn't there a game earlier on in the season where he score or give a goal away and score? Was that Poland at home, or was that Harry Maguire where he scored? I can't think now.
It's Harry Maguire, I think.
Was it?
I think he atoned for an error, giving a goal away by assisting Harry Maguire quite well. So I think that's what it was.
That's it. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, John Stones. I think I understand what you're saying, Aidan, about like the process throughout the Euros. Interesting one. I didn't see that one coming. Dom.
Yeah, I've gone for a different player again. And I think that in itself is a compliment to England, who I think have played as a team this year rather than as individuals peaking at different moments. And I haven't gone for Harry Kane and no one else has. And I think that's a compliment as well, because I think the previous highest number of goals that any player had scored in a single calendar year before this year for England was 12 or 13. And Harry Kane is just here with 16 England goals. Quite against San Marino, but that's not his fault. So I'm going to go with Raheem Sterling. I find it difficult to give it to anyone else. I think England did a lot of kind of 1-0 teams in the Euros, and I think that frustrated people until we got to the stage where we were in a semi-final or a final. I think until the real latter stages, that was frustrating people. They weren't seeing England run teams ragged. They weren't seeing 3-0s or 4-0s apart from Ukraine, which was perhaps an anomaly if you look back. But for a lot of the tournament, it was quite pragmatic. I didn't mind that, because I think that's exactly what England had not been able to do in previous years. Look at Germany, who historically win every tournament game 1-0 or 2-0. But the point is they win them. We don't win games. And that's a problem. So I didn't mind the fact that England were pragmatic. And that meant at the tournament that the players were playing quite fixed in their position. They were doing their job, nothing more, nothing less. And every time it was enough to beat the opponent. With the exception of Sterling, who I think was absolutely excellent in almost every game and was our real risk taker. You know, before the tournament, people were liking the whole Foden, Mount, Grealish debate. Who's going to start? Can you squeeze them all into a team? Which one of them is going to be the one to kind of dazzle at the tournament and be that Gascoigne kind of Scholes figure who, you know, does a bit of magic, maybe doesn't stick to a fixed position and does that creative sparkle? Well, Sterling ended up being that player, in my opinion. You know, he started on the wing for most of the tournament, but he drifted inside. And the most important thing about it was that he was really brave. England have got wide players who don't try and beat their man or their marker, like Rashford in recent years, I would say, sadly falls into that category. They've got wide players who try and beat their man and don't always manage it. Sancho, I would say, counts as that. But Sterling, without exception, he takes the ball and he runs past people. And not only does he try and do it every time, which I think is brave in itself, because, you know, if you try that 3 times and it doesn't come off, you get substituted in this day and age. Not only does he try it, but he manages it every time. And I think he was England's greatest player at the European Championships, and he played well before the Euros in March, and he played well after the Euros. He scored that really good goal in Budapest, of course, as well. So I think he deserves it because he was the bravery and the excitement that guided England to the Euros above anyone else. And I think without him, especially in the group stage, but, you know, don't just be blindsided by the goals, you know, without him, I think England would have been, you know, wouldn't have got anywhere near as deep into that tournament as they did. It's similar to what Aidan says about Stones. So I have to go with Sterling. I think he was absolutely fantastic this year.
Yeah. Was it 3 goals in the Euros? Croatia, Czech Republic, and the opener against Germany. Yeah, Raheem Sterling. We're recording this before the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, of which he's been put up for that. So yeah, well, we'll see how well he does in that one. 5 goals he scored throughout the year. Kicked off with a goal against San Marino. He got the 3 in the Euros, and as you mentioned, 1 against Hungary. I also mentioned Harry Kane. You mentioned Harry Kane there, scored 16 goals throughout the year, which was a record. 52 England goals throughout this calendar year, from January to, it would have been from March to November, wouldn't it, in those 19 games? 52 goals. Yeah, 52 goals. I think there was 1 own goal, and that was against Denmark. Correct me.
Yeah, it would have been. You know, the next best. Oh, we had one against San Marino as well in the 10-0.
Yes.
But you know the second best after 52 that we've ever had in the calendar year is rubbish in comparison. To be fair, 38, which was in 2019 when we blitzed Euro 2020 qualification for the tournament. So all in recent times. To be fair,
I mean that just goes to show 52. An extra. What did you say? It was 32. We scored back
38.
then. 38. So what's that? 14 more?
14 more, yeah. It's a lot of goals, isn't it?
That is. Well, if we hadn't have had Harry Kane scoring 16 this year, we wouldn't have done it, maybe. Well, go on. That brings us on to our goal of the year. 52 to choose from. Aidan, go on. You start us off with this one. What was your goal of the year?
Well, I was about to go for the Jordan Henderson goal against Ukraine, just because of the fact that it was his first goal, and you could see how much it meant to him when he punched the air. But no, I've just changed just now. I'm going to go for the first goal against Germany in the round of 16, the Raheem Sterling goal. Not because I thought it was, an insane goal or anything like that. I think there were a few that you could pick out that were probably better than it this year, but because of what it kind of represented for the year and for where we are with this team now. in terms of, getting that first goal, it sort of looked like it was going to go as a 0-0 to extra time, possibly even all the way to penalties. It looked like that kind of a dreadful kind of, oh no, here we go again. Like we had against Italy in 2012 and, we've had so many times before. But to get that second half goal, that first goal and go ahead with just 15 minutes to go, that in itself was almost breaking down a barrier that maybe you can't really put into a stat. But then also, the whole thing about beating major nations and winning knockout games and all of these things that we were doing. And then also the fact that, okay, well, we kind of broke down those barriers in 2018. But what we didn't do in 2018 is score enough goals from open play. And we were very reliant. 9 of the 12 goals at the World Cup in Russia in 2018 were set-piece goals, set-piece routines or, direct from a set-piece or anything like that. So to be able to not just get an open play goal, but actually, to be quite honest, carve Germany open with that goal was something that probably stood out for me in my mind. That's probably why I'm picking it, because that just shows so much progress under this team. And, you almost, when we've conceded goals to major nations in the past, you almost don't think about it if it's a really great routine that we just got nowhere near as our defenders, and you just think, oh, okay, yeah, they scored a really good goal there. But you don't quite appreciate how difficult that is to do in the big games. You've got to put so much emphasis on being near enough perfect defensively against these major nations. Otherwise, you get picked apart. And sometimes what you forget to do is focus on, okay, how can we take the game to them? How can we expose their weaknesses? And, often you are reliant on set pieces in these big games. That's why we see so many corner routines or free kick goals in semi-finals and finals. But to be able to carve Germany open like we did, like Sterling picking the ball up there and just running straight at Rudiger and getting past him, and then getting past, I think it was Gersons as well. And then he knocked it out wide to Luke Shaw, who, by the way, had a fantastic tournament, even if you take away the goal, even before then. Had a really good tournament coming forward for England. And, zip that ball back in. And this was all at the time that Jack Grealish had come on and sort of made that difference. Saka had started the game off really nicely for England. No one really expected him to start. And then Grealish, everyone was, cheering when he got warmed up. He came on and sort of changed the momentum a little bit for England. And it's that goal really that stands out for me. And Sterling, keeping on the Sterling theme, like Don was saying, had a fantastic tournament as well. That was his third goal of the tournament. By that point, he was the only player to have scored in the 4 games that we had until Harry Kane knocked in the second one 10 minutes later. But yeah, it's that goal that stands out for me, just the way we carved Germany open and the progress that shows under Southgate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got a list here of the goals that I thought were great, and that's certainly there. And when I watched it back the other day, the interplay that went into, as you described there, for Sterling to score that goal I probably didn't appreciate it at the time because it was just running on adrenaline. It's when you sort of watch it back again in like, wow, actually, yeah, the way that was played about and how we carved Germany apart to get that opening goal. Yeah, the feelings behind the goal that day for me were great. Yeah. Dom, go on, let's move on to you.
I feel like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but 52 goals. I can't really think of any that were kind of world-class goals. But, I mean, you don't really see that many world-class goals in football anymore now anyway, because people just tap it on a plate for you, don't they? I mean, that's how Man City are so good. But yeah, I would say the best goal, and I'm purely going to go on, what the goal looked like, not the importance of the game, clearly, when you hear my answer. But I think the Kane overhead kick against Albania is my shout, because, I mean, if you're asking for the best goal, yeah, there were some incredibly important goals. I mean, probably the most important goal was his penalty against Denmark, which actually the goalkeeper saved. So, yeah, some of our most important goals are maybe not the prettiest this year, but that's okay. Every goal counts, and we deserved every one. But the Kane overhead kick to complete the hat-trick was an excellent goal against Albania in that 5-0 win. Of course, England were 5-0 up at half-time. Yeah, technically superb goal. I think that the corner came in, it was knocked on, and there he was to pounce on it. Slight deflection on it, I think, but it's probably going in anyway. So, purely on the style of the goal, I think I have to go for that.
Yeah, that's another one in my list, is that acrobatic effort. And there's some great photos of it, different angles of the way he connected with the ball. One thing with that, because it was 5-0 at half time, and that came almost bang on half time. One of my friends who was sitting there with had gone to the toilet just shortly before that went in, but we were sitting almost front second row of the upper tier. So he had a few steps to go up, and I didn't see him until, I don't know, just before the second half was about to kick off. And the first thing I said to him, did you see that goal? I mean, it was obviously right at the other end of the pitch to where we were sitting. But throughout half time, I just kept thinking to myself, I'd be gutted if I missed that through just going to the toilet. But yeah, you've ticked off another on my list there. Matt, go on, tick another one off on my list.
So the goal I would pick is from that Germany game. It's not that Harry Kane, but it's the one to make it 2-0 because of just how much emotion and elation that created in the build to that game. Obviously, Harry Kane had been non-existent in the group matches. He was getting a lot of criticism from the press, a lot of criticism from fans. Considering of how good he was in the World Cup in 2018, everyone was wondering, where's this Harry Kane gone? Why is he not showing out what is, a bigger stage, a home tournament where he's the captain? And then, obviously we went 1-0 up, and obviously there's still a lot of nerves when you 1-0 up, especially international football. And with it being Germany as well, the tensions were heightened. But then when Kane scored a header off Grealish's cross, the bedlam when Luke Shaw scored in the final obviously was good, but when Kane scored the second against Germany, I've never seen anything like it. I'm pretty sure I ran up my row and back when he scored. We were all doing races to get up the rows and things, and you just saw how much it meant to him and the team on his face. It's just the emotion, and you felt after he scored it, just something had just been lifted off him. It was like, right, it's basically he's got the goal now, and then he couldn't stop scoring. Then obviously had the Ukraine game, and obviously there was the penalty miss against Denmark, things like that. But it was just the emotion and the carnage in the stands. It was just when I just think about it now, I can replay it in my head. I can see it clear as day. Where I was sitting then. But as soon as I saw him go for it, head it in, it was just. I've never seen elation like it at a football game. It was just, and on the pitch as well. I mean, I think our WhatsApp group photo is Phil Go England with is of them all in a pile after that goal, and Harry Maguire at the front, giving it some. So yeah, it's that goal against Germany because it just sealed the deal. It meant we broke a duck, and then also it was just great to see Harry Kane actually start to enjoy himself at the Euros, because the games before it looked like he didn't. It's like he wants to talk to you out as quick as possible.
Yeah, you're right. And you say there that it was like something had been lifted from him. It was almost like the monkey had been lifted from his back when he scored there, because there was so much in the press and people were saying, he needs to be dropped. He's not doing it. But obviously done that with, 10 minutes to go. And then 3 minutes in to the next game against Ukraine, he scored again. And then, did he get a hat-trick that game? Was it 3 for him and 1, 2? Was it? Jordan Henderson got one and
Maguire got the other. Yeah, another great goal. And so that the emotion there on that day, it would only just calm down after Sterling's goal, really. And then Kane went and done that. With my goal, I mean, 2 of them have been picked off there. I thought Harry Kane, he had a diving header in the away game at Albania, which was a smart little goal that he scored. Luke Shaw's obviously the goal in the final, which was already been mentioned by Dom. I mean, Luke Shaw doesn't score many goals, but he just found himself in that position. At the time, it meant everything, and it just didn't materialise. But I think just for that moment of what it felt like to score in a final, we'll never know what it felt like for him, but it was just a great moment for me. Yeah, so yeah, four great goals there to pick through. Go on, Dom.
I've heard a couple of the England players on the pitch at the time talking about that goal afterwards, right. And Kyle Walker did a really long interview recently, I think possibly with BBC, and he said when he was running kind of after Luke Shaw, kind of following him like they all seem to be. He said, I remember thinking at the time, we're actually going to win this, aren't we? And I heard that, and obviously I smiled a little bit, and I was just, I don't know, I was brushing my teeth or something stupid. But it also it's a bit sad to hear that, isn't it? Because it just reminds you just how close they were. He was wheeling away, following the other fullback, and he was thinking, I'm actually going to win the Euros. And the fact that didn't happen in the end, and the way in which they lost that final, it's kind of. It's just agonising, isn't it? You'd rather be 7-0, wouldn't you? Well, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Not in a final.
You know what I mean, though?
Yes.
I mean, it must be crushing for those players. However we feel as watchers on, I mean, that's tough for them, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's the thing that drives them forward. It's what's going to hopefully drive them forward to next year for the... Not just the World Cup, but like obviously qualification from the Nations League as well. There's plenty going on next year, and you just hope that disappointment. I mean, disappointment almost seems like not the word. That pain of losing in the final. I think I've read Harry Kane talking about it, that the pain is incredibly high. That is just going to propel them on, and you hear about it in general league football as well, where teams lose out on on the title or a major cup final, and wanting to go forward and get what was so close to them. Well, let's round it up with just a general look back on the Euros. I'm not quite sure how much time we've got left, but the Euros, cliched as it is, it was a fabulous summer of football, really, wasn't it? I mean, not just from England. We got to the final, we lost the final, but there was some good all-round football all round, I think. My only sort of major gripe would be, and it was one that I kind of always had, was the fact that it was pan-European. And I know why they did it. Obviously, it was to celebrate its 60th year. It was something that Platini, I think, wanted to do. Okay, fair enough, done it. But I'd like to think that we won't see that again. I don't mind two countries hosting it. I think that can work. But pan-European, it just didn't feel like a European Championships per se. Okay, we had all of our games bar one at home. And the only other thing that really frustrated me was just drawing with Scotland. It was just such an anticlimax that when the draw was made, it was like, we've got Scotland in the group, and everyone was harking back to 96 and just basically Scotland, the old enemy. And that game, Scotland obviously got a point out of it and came away quite happy, but it just felt such an anticlimax, that game. Go on, Aidan, throw us some Euro memories in and any stats you want.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned both those things, because I was actually going to mention both those things, actually.
Go on, no worries, go on.
Yeah, well, the Scotland game, I think it was very frustrating watching it. And look, I think I don't want to be one of those people who just jumps on the bandwagon of, we clearly got some sort of tactical error because we didn't come away with more goals than they did. And it's so easy to do that. And I think, obviously, when you may not have given the performance that you wanted to give, but you still come away with the win, we don't tend to express those regrets of, why didn't we do this? I think we should have played this player. Why didn't we play this system? You don't tend to do that because it's sort of, all that goes out the window and we're on to the next one, eyes on the next game. But, it was frustrating because I was thinking before the game, okay, that first game was great. We just sort of needed to get that first game out the way. Get that win, and then really the tournament starts, because that first game is almost in isolation, isn't it? Because we know our record with opening games. You just get that opening game 3 points. As soon as you got the 3 points, then let's focus on the tournament flow. And it just felt, you've halted the tournament flow with a 0-0 with Scotland of all teams, as well. I still think we should have gone to a back five for that game and pressed a little bit higher against them. But A, it doesn't matter now in hindsight, and B, it's just one of those things. Everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon and say something clearly went wrong. We didn't do what we should have done. But it doesn't matter so much now. And I remember back in 2016, Germany. Well, everyone was thinking, of course, Germany, world champions, they're going to win the tournament, aren't they? In 2016, they're going to win. It's either going to be Germany or France. And Germany got out the group in a similar way to we did this year. No goals conceded, but they'd had a 0-0 Poland, I think it was. And I remember the reactions of the Germany team after that. They were furious with that draw. And you look back now and you think on their tournament as a whole, and you think, yeah, but it didn't really affect how far you got. You still finished top of the group. You would have finished top of the group if you won the game. And then you went on to have a fantastic round of 16 and quarterfinal. And then, the semi-final wasn't what you expected, but, it didn't really directly impact how far you got. And I sort of feel the same with that Scotland game. So it's just one of those things. I think, you can't have every game go your way. If we'd have predicted each game in isolation from each other in that group stage before the tournament began, we'd have probably said we'll score 2 goals in each of them, maybe 1 goal against Croatia. But obviously, as the tournament is as a flow, you can't really take it like that. And each team has their own kind of momentum at each stage. Regarding the European tour, as it were, it was a great idea. What was interesting was the fact that obviously the host nations picked, tended to be nations who were probably going to get further in the tournament, or you would expect to do well in the tournament. And what was actually interesting was I was looking at the host stadiums before the tournament, thinking, okay, this is going to be one of those tournaments where literally every single good team has home advantage. They're all going to do well. It's going to be a real clash of the titans as it comes down to the wire, in the last few games. And actually, we saw 3 of the group stage winners, of the 6 group winners, went out in the round of 16, I think it was, or quarterfinals. Anyway, so France, it was round of 16 to Switzerland. That was probably sums up the whole tournament for me. That game was, when I think back on the summer, it's the France versus Switzerland game and how Switzerland came back from 3-1 down with just 14 minutes to go. And that goal in the last kick of the game, and then the Mbappe penalty, which loses it for France, against all the odds. And Holland went out with their red card for De Ligt. They went out to the Czech Republic, and then Belgium, Italy. It was a fantastic game. But a lot of the teams couldn't really hack being, they couldn't take advantage of the home matches in the way that we could. And I think that stands out for me. Okay, home advantage, yeah, sure. But it's not a given when you think about it. It's not actually a given, because Spain really struggled as well. Yeah, I probably agree with you. I wouldn't want to see it again as a tournament. I like the idea of having one host country, or, a couple of host countries like we had with Poland and Ukraine back in 2012. But, they kind of had to try it and see how it goes. And it's just unfortunate that it coincided with the COVID Euros. I probably wouldn't want to see that again. But it was interesting the way I thought all of the host countries would get a little bit further than they did.
Yeah. You just brought it back to me there. Was it Spain who had like their home ground? Was that the one that was was it in Seville? But it wasn't either Seville's ground or Betis ground. It was a real strange ground that isn't used in regular. Because they originally moved it from Bilbao, I think, didn't they? Yeah, and they moved it to Seville. And everyone, or perhaps myself, I thought it would either be at Betis or at Seville's ground. And it was at this strange running track ground that I'd never seen before. Forgotten about that one. Dom?
I don't really have any specifics to mention. Only when England prepare for a tournament, they, throughout the decades, it's always the question of could they, could they just? And the answer has always been no, they couldn't, because there are better teams and there are psychological barriers. But this time there weren't really. It wasn't really a could they. It's from now on. It's kind of can they, because the answer is that they can. Yes, England didn't win the Euros, but there wasn't really any barrier in the way. I mean, if you look at it, at the end of the day, it came down to a penalty shootout, which was won by one team by 1 goal. And even then, you couldn't say that's because one team choked under pressure and the other one didn't, because both teams choked under pressure. You know, Belotti missed a penalty and he's a striker. Jorginho is one of the best penalty takers in the world and he missed his penalty, or he had his penalty saved. But, you know, we missed 3 penalties. They just didn't quite miss 3. They missed 2. They won the penalty shootout, and I'm happy to give them that, because that's what happened. And they won the tournament. But you have to say, you know, in terms of ways to lose a final, that doesn't feel like defeat, really, does it? You go 1-0 up after 2 minutes and you lose on a penalty shootout by 1 penalty. I mean, that's a single kick of a ball. England should not ever again wonder, unless they have a dreadful generation of players, but I don't see why that would happen with the level of coaching relative to Europe that we've now got sustainably. England should never again wonder whether they could, or whether they can. The answer is they can, and the question is whether they will. And most of the times they won't, because there'll be someone else, and it'll be different each time who it is. But, you know, for the long-term future of the England team, it's good, because it shows them that any barriers are passable. And the question is not can they or could they, it's will they, and that's what we'll have to kind of watch from the sidelines and see the answer to.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down like that, it really is fine margins, isn't it? I mean, it was 1 goal in it from 12 yards, and I thought about this the other day, actually. I mean, the whole penalty shootout situation, that the one thing I think, and it's been well documented before about Gareth Southgate and perhaps how he should have looked at the final, but I'm still frustrated by Rashford and Sancho only coming on with a minute, 2 minutes left of the game, with the idea that it's going to go to penalties and they would be taking one. Well, whether they were ready for it mentally, whether they were in the game, I don't know. And I think the pair of them both done one of these really frustrating run-ups for a penalty that just drives me around the bend. Okay, your likes of Jorginho can step up and do a hop, skip and a jump, and 9 times out of 10 will score his. But the penalties there just really frustrated me. And just hit it. If we're going to learn something, just hit it. Matt, go on. Tell us some Euro memories.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, this summer has been a summer I will never forget. And I do agree with what Dom said earlier about breaking barriers. I think England have broken another barrier this past summer by actually reaching a major final. It seems to be a very natural progression, and I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself. Obviously, you know, they've got to final now. They know what heartbreak's like. Maybe now that was a learning experience for those players, and then if they go all the way in Qatar, then maybe it could go one better and lift that trophy. But yeah, it was not, I think, because as well the climate that we're in has really helped. I mean, like in 2018, the England team brought everyone together. In the summer, the England team brought everyone together even more so, because in the fact that, you know, we've been in lockdown for nearly a year, and, you know, the Euros came along at the right time, just as everything was starting to open up. I mean, as I mentioned before, my highlight was going to an England game for the first time in God knows how many months. I think it was the same amongst a lot of us who follow England home and away. And it was just an amazing summer. And it really, you know, it's one I'm never going to forget. I mean, obviously, even just being able to go to a major final is something that was on my bucket list as just a football fan in general. And just to go and watch your country in that final, regardless of what happened, regardless of what's surrounding the day, and regardless of what happened, it was just a dream come true. So, yeah, it was just a summer to remember. Obviously, it seems the matches after in those 3 international wins did peter off, but I think it's because we were all starting to come down from the Euros. So just getting back to usual matters with the qualifiers and things like that. But no, I think, as Dom said before, this England team, they've brought everyone together and they have broke a few barriers. I mean, quite a lot of this players are going to be in that team now for quite a while. So, you know, this is all great experience for them. And to do it, and for some to do it at a young age as well, you know, it'll only make them better in the future. I mean, obviously, you mentioned there with the penalties like so Rashford and Saka and things like that. Obviously, I think, you know, it's heat of the moment when it comes to penalties. And I think, you know, they were trying to phase out, the crowd, all the pressure, things like that. That might be why the run-ups that time weren't great. But maybe, in future big games, maybe they'll just simplify everything. So at the end of the day, it was a great summer, a great learning experience for all those players as well, a one to remember, and hopefully we can get a few more memories next year with the Nations League and also the World Cup.
Yeah, let's hope so. We've all got sort of dreams for next year of what could happen and the potential for it. But we'd be going on forever, I think, if we were to go into next year. We'll save that one for another time. But yeah, I've some of that. Yeah, was great, Matt. It was sort of those memories of it finally happening. Of sort of that has been the year, I think, for all of us. Anyone got any? I see we are running a bit out of time. Has anyone got any stats from the year they want to throw at us?
I might have used all of mine up, to be honest.
Yeah. How many debutants did we have throughout the year?
Do you know the answer to this?
I do know the answer to this.
I'll go with. I wouldn't say that many. I would say 4.
Higher,
I'd probably go a little bit higher. I'd go a little bit higher because I remember the pre-tournament friendlies. We had Godfrey, White, and Johnston all making their debut. So I'll probably go for 7.
Go on, Matt.
I'll go one more 8.
You can have that if you can name them all.
No, I can't name them all. I'll just go for 8 straight off.
No, you are right. There were 8. And obviously, as Aidan said there was Ben Godfrey, there was Ben White in those 2 games. Sam Johnston as well played up at Middlesbrough. Aaron Ramsdale.
Ollie
Watkins, yes.
Gallagher Smith Rowe.
Yep, and Patrick Bamford.
Oh, of course, against Andorra.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to work out for Patrick Bamford, did it? I mean, do we think he's got a chance?
No, I don't think we'll get back in now, to be honest.
No. I said last season when he was, ripping up the Premier League and boosting everyone's fantasy league points, I was saying I don't see him being much more than a one-season wonder. But I also wasn't...
To be fair, he has had COVID and he's been injured, so he would have played a hell of a lot more football this year if those things weren't true. But overall, I agree. He's not England quality compared to other strikers. I mean, Watkins, if you compare the two of them, Watkins is a much better player.
Thing about Watkins is, though, I don't know is he a centre forward going forward? Is he a central striker? I don't know, because he used to be a winger when he was at Brentford a few years back. So yeah. I don't know whether he's going to be a striker for too much longer. I don't know if it might be a Mason Greenwood situation where he never quite makes it. He always sort of has spells up front, but then he always kind of gets demoted to the wing when someone better comes along. And I was almost fearful that Watkins would get pushed aside when Danny Ings came in. But it hasn't really happened. It's good to see Watkins, staking a claim and carrying on getting the goals, because, we need all the strikers we can get. If anything were to happen to Harry Kane, we'd be looking at the next bunch of lads, and that's Tammy Abraham, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Watkins probably are your next 3.
Yeah, well, it's we'll see how. Obviously, with regards to Bamford, how Leeds really carry on in the second half of the season. Just a quick one as well. Obviously, Harry Maguire became England's highest ever goal-scoring defender, ahead of
Moore and Terry joint, I think.
Were they joint? Were they?
Yeah, 6.
Okay, I had John Terry down here. I didn't realise he was joint with.
Maguire's on 7 now, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's always good to have a goal scoring defender like Slaphead coming up for a corner.
Yeah. And I think actually 6 of his 7 England goals have come in have come inside 12 months of each other.
Have they?
I think so. Yeah, or just a few days over, because of. His second England goal was the one in the friendly against Ireland last November. And then all the rest have come within 12 months of that, or within 12 months and a few days, maybe.
All this while he's having I think it's fair to say, having a bit of a patchy time at United, I think. So
yeah, who isn't?
Well, there is that. I mean, it's good to see that throughout this year that maybe if club teams haven't had the best of times, the England players from those teams have come together for the right time.
That's to England's credit, to be fair, isn't it?
Absolutely, and to Gareth Southgate and his team that have guided them throughout the year. Well, I think we'll round it up at that. Guys, thank you very much, not just for this, but throughout the year for being part of the Three Lions podcast and sort of helping it along with your contributions. Yeah, thank you, and wish you very best of Christmases, all the best for the new year, and hopefully we can all continue to speak in what will be a prosperous new year.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
Thank you to the guys there. As I said, it has been great to have them on the show throughout the year, and I'm sure they will be back with me throughout 2022. You can find them all on social media, so just go on, give them a follow. Now, also, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for your support throughout the year, for the messages you've sent, or saying hello face to face. I couldn't ask for a better set of listeners. And some of you have been good enough to send in your highlights of the year too.
Hello Russell, it's Gary here from Channel England Football on YouTube, and what a year it's been. Yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts because it's just been unbelievable, hasn't it? In all the years I've been following England, it's by far the best year ever. I thought I'd experienced that in 2018, but it surpassed it again this year. Of course, the big highlight has to be England reaching our first final in 55 years or whatever it is. You know, unbelievable. It is still tinged with that little bit of disappointment again that we couldn't go on and win. But it's, you know, I couldn't have wished for anything more. At the beginning of this year, if somebody said to me, you know, England are going to make the final, I'd have bit their hand off, even if you just said we'd have lost it. But what a brilliant year. If I was going to pick any particular moment, I would say it's probably Kane's goal against Germany to make it 2-0, to put the game beyond them in the round of 16 at what sounded like a packed Wembley. But it wasn't, you know, it was only like half full or whatever it was because of COVID. But what a moment that was. It felt like, you know, it was happening again. It felt like 2018 again from the World Cup. It felt like this is going to be another England run, and it went above and beyond my expectations. And it really just got better and better from there. So let's hope we have many, many more years like this one. But what a year it's been.
Hi, this is Garv Singhvi from LA. It's a great podcast, Russell. I really love listening to it. Thanks so much for giving me the chance to contribute. I had plans to be in England for the Euros, but ultimately was not able to make it due to circumstances. The highlight for me was definitely the wonderful atmosphere surrounding the team and their performance over the summer. I could feel it even though I wasn't there. The exuberant outdoor viewing parties, the return of my favorite anthems, Football's Coming Home, Vindaloo, Southgate You're the One, Sweet Caroline, and especially all the new versions that they spawned. I also enjoyed watching the Lions Den. It gave me a fascinating insight into the players' psyche and warm and engaging personalities. What a great group they are. Finally, the one that really sticks out is the huge send-off the players got when they left St. George's Park the day before the final. What an awesome sight that was to behold. Thanks, and looking forward to an equally memorable 2022.
Hi guys and girls, Steve Hopper here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying Christmas so far, and I hope you're all staying safe. My highlight of the year, well, it has to be, doesn't it? Euro 2020/2021, the entire tournament. Well, I guess I should probably be a little bit more specific. So in that case, I will go for England's win 2-0 over Germany in the second round of the Euros. The first time England beat Germany in a major competition since 1966. What an incredible experience that was. The match, before it, post-match, the celebrations throughout London and England afterwards. The party just did not stop. I think I got back about 5-6 o'clock the next morning, something like that. It was magical. And I certainly lost my voice for a few days afterwards. Just an incredible time, something I'd always dreamt about, experiencing such a feeling in the country. And we had that, of course, throughout the whole tournament. So exciting. I can't wait for next year. Of course, we've got the Euros in the summer with the women, and then we've got the Men's World Cup towards the end of the year in Qatar. It's going to be a special year. I can feel it. Have a very Merry Christmas, all of the listeners, and let's bring it home in 2022. See you soon.
Hi Russell, it's Sam here from It's Coming Home TV. Yeah, what a 2021 it has been for the Three Lions. You know, it didn't start off, great from a fan's point of view with the first three games being behind closed doors for the World Cup qualifiers, but 3 good results, 9 points. That's all you can expect, really. And then we could be here all day talking about the summer, but it was a summer that will live long in the memory of all England fans. It's a shame it was, unfortunately, the final was spoiled by a few, say, non-England fans, shall we say. But, if you look at the Germany game, the Denmark game and everything else, surrounding it, it was such a fantastic experience and something I'll always have fond memories to tell my kid. It was great to get back on the road and watch England away again in Andorra and San Marino. So let's hope for the same in 2022 with Germany and Italy and whoever we get in March as well. Roll on 2022.
Thanks to Gary, Gurav, Sam and Steve there. Well, that's pretty much it for the show and for the year. And what a year it's been. As I've mentioned, I've got plenty to look forward to in 2022. And hopefully, with that, we'll couple them with the Nations League qualification, Euro victory for our women, and top it all off with a World Cup win 12 months from now. What an end-of-year review that would be. Thank you as always for your continued support. You can follow the show on social media. Just search Three Lions Podcast. It just leaves me to wish you a Merry Christmas, however you may be celebrating it, and wishing you a prosperous new year. As always, take care of yourself. Stay safe. Cheers.